Now from next week, Ireland stages the Under-17 European Championships with the hosts facing Greece, the Czech Republic and Belgium in Group A, and it comes off the back of 2 quarter-final appearances for Ireland in the last 2 editions of the tournament. The man who has masterminded both of those runs and hopes to go even further, I'm sure, this time round, Colin O'Brien, joins us in studio. Colin, you're very welcome along.
Thank you.
We're, just over a week away from that first game with Greece in Tallaght. How are you, as a manager, as a man, just this close to a massive tournament for the under-17s?
Yeah, I suppose firstly our first game is Friday week, May 3rd, against Greece in Tallaght. Yeah, look, very excited. I suppose it's been building up for a while. This group of players, since under-15s, knew they were going to be hosting the final as the host nation. So we took the group over in July. So we've been working with them for the last 10 months. July 2018, and we've been building up to this since then. So really looking forward to it.
How much FaceTime do you get? Because I know we obviously, Ireland had to not go through the qualifiers as would normally be the case. We obviously had host duties, so we don't get the same level of preparation, especially on the pitch, that we would have done previously. How do you manage to work with the time that you do have with the players and have had it with players over the course of the last year?
Yeah, it's been our objective's been a little bit different this season, but we'd still have more or less the same contact time with them from the start of the season right up to the tournament. It's just the difference is we just didn't have the qualifying games this year as such, but we made up for it. We looked at some very strong nations this year, some very testing games for the players to put them into that environment. And what's interesting is 2 of the teams in our groups, the Czech and Belgium, we've already encountered this season.
And what did you learn from both of those encounters? Not necessarily just from the opposition, but also from your own squad.
Well, you're always learning with your squad because, it's not just about the game. It's, when you come into international football, it's 24/7. The players are with you for morning, noon and night, basically, for whether it's a week and a half, or for the international under-17 tournament, it's going to be nearly 2 weeks they'll definitely be in for. So you learn a lot about them on the pitch and off the pitch, that whole dynamic. Get opportunity to work with them with how we work, regarding training, meetings, how we want to play. And you find out a lot about the personalities and characters of the team as well. So we've been looking at all those aspects since last July, and now we'll just be ready. The players will report in next Monday, and we'll be ready to go for the 3rd.
One of the things you said previously around the get-togethers that you had, especially around those friendlies with Finland, is that you wanted to mirror as much and as best as you can the situations surrounding tournament football. Having these games within 3 days of one another, essentially 3 days game, 3 days game, it's a very unique situation for these group of players to try and play in that type of environment, to try and play when you're all that close together for that prolonged length of time. It is a difficult thing to try and mirror. How did you go about doing that?
Well, the process at international football was started under 15, so Jason Donoghue would have had this group, so they would have began that process. So some of them will be used to that, and then they move on to 16s with Paul Ozam, and so they've been used to that type of environment as well. And when they come in as 17s, basically, the time might be a little bit longer when they come in for. There might be extra days, and the games become more competitive for them. So we add that education to them for the players. So this year, we started with a training camp. We started with a home-based assessment in July, and then we went into a 3-day training camp in August. Played our first double headers against Turkey in September, and then in November, because that time of the year all the other countries are playing their first qualifying phase. So UEFA would have helped us with a funding for a 3-team tournament in Dublin, in Tallaght, stay in the City West Hotel, train where we're looking to train. So last September and November, point being, is we played 5 matches. We played them in Ireland, so we were able to mirror where we were playing next week, basically, for the tournament. Come February then, we would have brought the squad away to Spain, which is good. You get a little bit more extra prep with them. Played Belgium and Poland out there. And March was always the tricky one for us this year, because that month is the elite phase for under-17s and 19s. So Finland, they didn't get through to elite phase, which they were very unlucky. They lost to both France and Poland in the first qualifying phase. But they were a decent side, so again, that was a good test for us. Again, we played 2 games. So basically, since the players have been in, that was in Ireland as well. So, of our, we'll say, 4 events, 3 of them we've used our advantage by playing at home.
You've got a squad that's, to look through, the most recent one, obviously a name for those friendlies of Finland, was hewn from everywhere from Ballina-Mallard to Real Betis. I mean, as an under-17s head coach, how do you go about picking the best players and coalescing that squad as one, because it is quite scattergun the way they are, just the nature of underage football, the way they're playing and where they're playing the club football at the moment.
Yeah, well, again, you'd have to go back to, before even 15s, with the schoolboy setup. Now we have the National League setup come into play, the emerging talent. So all those players, especially the homegrown and home-based players, would have been playing here, except the players that moved last July that are gone to the UK there in their first season. We'd have a broad network with regards to recruitment, especially in our own country here, both north, east, south, west in the country. We've people watching games every week. I see a lot of matches myself, and I also have a lot of people watching games, so you get reports on players every weekend, and then you get an opportunity to see these players. Then we'd have a process, maybe we would bring players in earlier in the season to see where they're at, but as I said, a lot of that work would be done at 15s, 17s, but you always have to monitor young players. There can be serious jumps in their development within 3 months, 6 months, so you have to keep an eye on them. So there's a few players might make our squad for the finals, have been in and around about it, and they'll still come back into the pictures for 18 and 19s as well.
It seems now more than ever there seems to be a lot of more joined up thinking as regards the underage setups, and how, just in a linear term, how the under 15s graduate to the 17s and then beyond to Tom Mohan's 19s and hopefully touch wood 21s and seniors. It seems the elements and the systems put in place by Ruud Doctor, maybe even beforehand as well, seem to be actually bearing fruit this time around.
Yeah, well, there was some systems in place before Ruud joined us, and then Ruud has added a lot of stability to it, and it's great for us to have someone, in Abbottstown with a football thinking as well, that we can go to, with our issues or with our problems, and basically, we work together as a team. There's no one gone off on their own solo event. 15s, 19s, 17s, 18s, 21s. Mick has been involved with us since he's come in as well. So there is a lot of joint up thinking. We share ideas, insights, give a lot of feedback on how a lot of our games, our developments have gone with each squad. Working with a lot of talented people, very skilled and very passionate about Irish football.
Yeah, I was reading somewhere as well, there's outside coaches come in and you offer them to come in and analyse the games on your behalf and see what they can learn from them. That obviously is probably going to be a two-way street in terms of coaching. They're going to learn a lot, and you're obviously going to pick up an extra pair of eyes on the squad as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's the 15s or 16s, especially if the teams are playing at home, a lot of the international managers will go to those games as well. And so we just have very good communication between each other, and that's really important.
And what did Mick think of the setup when he came involved?
I think he was very impressed. I think, since he wasn't involved to where he was known, what he saw, I think he was very impressed. And he also gave us a presentation recently regarding the senior team, which is really important for the whole line, as he said. Yeah,
it's going to be a massive boon. Looking at the tournament itself, you mentioned that we have prior knowledge of a couple of the teams from recency in terms of the games, but setting into that first game of Greece Friday week, I mean, you mentioned before how opening games of tournaments and opening games for the hosts in particular can go one of two ways. They can be really open and expansive, and you can see, like, the one that always brings to mind when I think of open expansive is that Germany-Costa Rica game in 2006, which was like 4-2, which is mental. And then you have another one that's 0-0 and stodgy, and everyone's nervous, nobody wants to put a foot wrong. How best do you kind of coach, especially mentally, the players heading into that first game on Friday week?
Yeah, well, we've been prepping them throughout the season for that. Obviously, the prep will go up a little bit more once they're all in next Monday. Now we'll start our first pitch session on the Tuesday, and it'll be very much building to that first game. So you have that kind of balance of, yes, the opposition, the players nowadays, they want to know a lot about them, but also you have to focus on yourselves. So you have to have that balance for the players. Look, you'll want them to go and express themselves. They'll still need to understand that there's a plan in the game, that there's a structure about how we're trying to go about the game as well. But sometimes there's just that unknown in that first game. The last couple of years we did two very good performances in our opening game, but we lost the game. It's the three games are massive. Like, you have to plan for all three of them. You really want to be in the shake-up going into the last game, but right now we just got to make sure we're prepared fully for the Greece game.
One of the things you're saying as well is that, when you head into these tournament situations, it's not necessarily all about winning medals. It's about the player development, and that's quite key, especially when you're at the age group that you've been looking after for the past couple of years. With that in mind, you obviously want to use your entire squad as best you can throughout these group stages as well. One of the main I suppose, nice headaches you have heading into this tournament? You've got two rather good goalkeepers. You've got Jimmy Corcoran, who unfortunately is suspended given the events of 12 months ago for that Greek game, but a young lad called Gavin Bazunu has really put his head above the parapet in the last 12 months and has given you a nice selection headache there.
Yes, and what it also does mean the fact that Jimmy is suspended for the first game because of the bizarre circumstances last year. His suspension doesn't kick into his first competitive game, which will be kicking in the tournament. Young Harry Halwex as well has come into the picture from Derby County because we had to look at three goalkeepers because you need two on the bench for that first game. So we've looked at that situation throughout the season. That's been another objective of us. How would be fair if certain situations happened? So they've all had opportunity, which is good. They all understand what's required as the goalkeeper at international level. But yes, right now Gavin will be, once he's fit, gets through this weekend, he'll be available to play in the first game. So it's important you go in with a good goalkeeper into the tournament.
When are you naming your final squad itself?
Monday.
Monday. There's been a lot of, judging by your reaction there, a lot of hair pulling out over the course of the last while. The anticipation of making phone calls to disappointed people, etc., is not the nicest of scenarios.
Well, look, throughout the whole year, we'd have a process with the players when they come in. We'd be very clear with feedback. The way analysis is now, players have, they learn a lot by visual. We say aids, but you have that feedback. We're very honest with them. But also players that might make a squad, as I said earlier, it's not that they're out of the picture. They just mightn't be ready right now. Yeah. And I've seen that with a couple of players down the line, and now I see some of them progressing with the under-19s. So, they got to persevere, those players. But also we've cooperation and we'll say communication more so with the clubs that those players are involved with, because they've got the contact with them, they've got the more day-to-day stuff. So we provide feedback to the club coaches as well, which is really important for that player's development.
When you mention them learning through visual aids, what kind of stuff does that take the form of?
Personally, I just see the game, like just the analysis, the match, the videos. There's different aids. You've got your tactic boards, we'll say. You've got magic moves. I think coaches will understand what I mean with that presentation. What's magic moves? Basically, it's just a PowerPoint presentation where you can set up two teams on it, and basically the magnets move for you as opposed to a tactic board. You have
slightly more high def than our tactics board over here.
A little bit, yeah. And you need someone good with a bit of technology on the we'll say the laptop to get it moving for you as well. But the big thing for me, the players they still look at the game when you have the video up for them, and whether it's their individual, whether it's something with them in a unit as the team, that's where they learn a lot. And then the practical side on the pitch, the doing side of it, that's really big for them. So they're the areas that they get a lot of education on.
When you name that squad, one of the players who I think still qualifies for the age group is Troy Parrott. A lot of people would be interested to see if Troy's going to be involved this time round. I don't know if you've spoken to him about it, if you've spoken to Spurs about it, about whether or not he can be involved this time round. I'm not looking for a spoiler necessarily, but is there a chance that he could still be available to you?
We still haven't had the exact decision on it.
Okay.
But we yes, to answer your question, we have spoken to Spurs, but it's a little bit more complex. But you will know on Monday.
Okay, we'll know on Monday. Not looking for many spoilers on that front. We have to touch on what happened 12 months ago as well, because I think a lot of people, when they may have last seen you on camera, was that post-match interview with Tony O'Donoghue, whereby you were probably the most composed human being in that stadium. Even our senior manager at the time mightn't necessarily have had the same composure as you at the time. A lot of people would have taken a lot of heart from that in the sense that this guy's looking after our under-17s, and that's kind of the attitude we want to see. Whereas even if something catastrophically weird goes wrong for the side, that the guy looking after everybody has it down, says, listen lads, this isn't the end of the world, this is merely another step in our growth and our progression and our human evolving as well. That moment for you as well must have been a rush of emotions while you're trying to, I suppose, sum up what had just gone before.
Yeah, look, I've been asked about it a lot, whether it's friends or presentations you do around coach education. I work in that area as well around the country.
But you can see why. I mean, it was most people will be ranting and raving. People in a senior position will be going mental, but you were a vision of calm, but in the right way.
Yeah, look, I just felt that it was a bizarre set of circumstances. I think that everyone would agree on that. But there was probably that moment before the post-match interview as well, where we had a kind of maybe 7-10 minute spell with the players, and it was just so emotional. It really, really was, and just felt the players needed to be given a lot of credit. It was their 4th game in the tournament. People might have forgot that, or might be aware of that possibly as well. And they were excellent throughout the tournament. How they played, how they represented, and how they actually performed throughout the season. They were really, really good. And the same with the squad that went before them the year earlier. So no, that's just how I felt. Yeah, there was all sorts of emotions going on. But in a broader view, there was a lot of encouragement I saw from those players, because I'd worked with them throughout the season.
And it kind of leaves you in an ideal position as well, given the fact that this tournament is at home, that you can kind of harness that good feeling from home and get people. Because let's face it, I don't think we've hosted the under-17s since 94. I think something like that.
One of the earlier.
And just generally, like the idea of an Irish player playing a tournament of international football on home soil, for whatever reason, given the size of the country, given the performances of the senior sides, etc., doesn't happen every year. Mightn't happen again in these guys' career. So it's something for them to treasure, but it's also something for the public to take hold of.
Yeah, I think you're hitting a lot there. To the public, I suppose this is a massive event for the players. It's the biggest international event they can play in Europe for their age group, which is U17s. It's a big platform for them. If people are interested in research and looking at players that played, going back many years, from different countries, there's been some excellent players playing it and gone on to play, at a high level within the game. So that platform's there for them. But to play at home is really, really special. We're going to embrace it. You know what I mean? We're not going to be putting the pressure on the players. We're really going to embrace it. We want them to really seize the opportunity, grasp it. And the support, Irish support normally is really, really good at coming out and supporting their teams. And we'll be asking for that as well. We'll need that 12th, 13th man, because the 3 games in the 7 days is pretty demanding. Yeah. And the players, I know they'll really, really appreciate that support, and hopefully the people will come out and watch us. And
it's set up nicely for people to do. Under-16s get in free. It's a $5 for adults. I mean, you can't ask for fairer than that, I guess.
I think so, and I think what I'm hoping to see is a lot of young faces there, because there's players playing the game, maybe 9, 10, 11, aspiring to be an Irish international player. They're going to see a high level tournament of the best in Europe on their doorstep. Come out and support us. Watch the teams, come and support Ireland if you can get to see other teams, so you can see the profile of players, how other teams play, the level of the game, the demands of the game at that age group. So I think it's a great opportunity, even from an educational point of view, for young players and coaches that are working with the youth. I'd encourage them to go and see games. And
listen, after the last 6 weeks we've had, I guess it's a nice chance for a good Irish football story.
100%. Look, we're fully focused on this. Staff, I know, and all the players, they have to play a lot of them are playing their last round of league matches this weekend, so hopefully they'll all come through that fine and get them in on Monday, and we'll be ready to go on the May 3rd. Very good. We wish you all the very best, and all the best in the future endeavours as well further on. I know you've been 3 years in the job. Is there appetite to continue on beyond this point, or? Look, we're just delighted to be contributing to the international setup at the moment with the youth setup, and this group now is just taking up all the focus. Yeah, I can see the smile on your face. You're actually relishing, looking forward to these next couple of weeks. 100%. Yeah, brilliant. Colin O'Brien, thanks so much for taking time out to speak to us today. Thank you.